My name's Morag and welcome to this session, which is our weekly Wild and Kind Wednesday. So every Wednesday since the Wild and Kind Festival, we've been having fabulous conversations. All of the replays are now available to you, and I've been sending those out. You can find them on the emails that I send out. Today, we have Looby Macnamara with us. Hi to Looby. Looby is calling in from the UK. A very hot UK, I understand, and hot Europe. I've been looking at those maps. Absolutely horrendous what we're seeing come through. I'm sitting here on the other side of the planet in just past the winter solstice here in Gubby Gubby and Jinnaburra country in a place called Crystal Waters Permaculture Village. Libby and I have known each other for such a long time, and we are both permaculture educators and involved in the space of permaculture communication and bringing forth change in whatever ways that we possibly can. So I'm so excited to have this yarn with you, Looby. For those of you who are just meeting Looby for the first time, she is based at the Applewood Permaculture Centre that she created with her partner, Chris Evans, where she lives with her family. She has written, I'm going to say 5 books, but you're going to tell me that's more than that because, well, there's poetry, there's 7 ways to think differently, people in permaculture, cultural emergence, and her most recent book that was put out in September, I believe, last year called Design Adventures. And so in this conversation, we will kind of weave our way through a lot of different dimensions of those. And I would also love to invite you to drop into the chat if you have any questions for us. And I'll try and keep my eye on that and bring the questions in. But also we'll make space to towards the end where we invite you to come and join us. So this is kind of like a live podcast, if you think like that. So Looby and I will dive into a conversation, but we'd love you to be part of it as well. Thank you to anyone who was able to make a donation when you joined this session. So all of the Wild and Kind Festival and follow-on conversations like this are pay as you want. And that means that it starts from zero, and every dollar that is shared goes 100% to Wild and Kind projects in parts of the world like refugee settlements and Indigenous communities. And so we send that through our registered charity, which is the Ethos Foundation, directly to those. So thank you to anyone who was able to share some this time. Thank you very much. Any event that we run like this online is always in that fashion. So just so you know. And we also do host sessions where you get to meet some of the people who are recipients of that and come and ask them questions about it too. So without anything more in terms of introduction, welcome, Looby. It's so lovely to have you here today. This is a permaculture conversation, but we're having a chat before we start. This is not about plants and permaculture. This is about people and permaculture and imagination and permaculture and cultural emergence. So just to kind of lay that out on the ground, I mean, you probably could ask us about plants and we'll have a response to it. We probably would have a way to use that as a metaphor for something else as well. But we're beginning with the kind of people and permaculture place as our starting point today. So welcome, Looby.
Oh, thank you, Morag. Thank you so much for everything that you put out into the world and your generosity and your vision for helping so many people and your embodiment of the fair shares ethic as well. I think that's one of the ethics that doesn't necessarily get paid enough attention to or could be paid more attention to. So thank you for embodying that. And yeah, as you said, we've been friends for many years now, so it's always lovely to have a conversation with you. So we'll and lovely to then invite people to sort of sit around the virtual campfire with us, so and enjoy the storytelling that will surely come. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. And you're right. I think, the fair share ethic of permaculture is just so, for me, deeply woven in the earth care and people care. And it is just, as part of what you focus on, this whole concept of, people and permaculture, people in permaculture, and sorry, I've got my little plant a little bit close today. Hello, plant. wants to come and join the conversation.
Yeah.
This particular one was from a little gully just outside, and it was just growing so abundantly that it kind of was starting to try and come inside the house. So I sort of thought, okay, well, we'll just bring you inside. You can be part of our conversations and inform what we do. Also, it just makes the air so much fresher in here, and they're a bit wet at the moment because I've had them out in the rain. But anyway, welcome to the plants as well. So just going to the people in permaculture, let's begin there because this is a book that you wrote, gosh, maybe wow,
Well,
2011,
yeah,
is it?
there you go. Here's People in Permaculture, and this came out in 2012, so a while back, and it was before even the term social permaculture was being used at all, because I didn't use that in the book because it wasn't out there in in the permaculture movement at all. And at that time, the permaculture design courses and the literature was so focused on earth care, which is one of the strengths of permaculture, and it's an entry point for many people into permaculture is through land care and through earth care. And but then what I noticed for myself and for many other people around me was that plants might be the entry point and gardening, but then there's so much more that happens in your life, in my life and in other people's life, because of permaculture, because what we're doing is shifting our thinking, and then how we move through the world, what we want to contribute to the world, our relationships, how, our even our daily routines, all of these things shift, and our health and well-being shift, our friendships shift, our the communities we're involved with, they all shift because we start learning to look at the world differently and interact with the world differently. And I know for me it was like really activated my purpose and my sense of contribution. So when I did my permaculture design course, I didn't have a garden of my own. That wasn't my focus really. I had someone else's garden and I did a little bit, but it wasn't like a focus. It was like a little bit experimentational. And but what I so loved about my PDC, which is the thing that has kept me going from then, was the way I was invited to contribute. And coming from like university, which I was doing my final year of my degree at the same time, and doing my PDC over weekends, so I'd like be in the week going and kind of like having lectures and like regurgitating material from books, referencing everything. Don't put any original ideas in because you haven't got a PhD, that kind of thing. And then going to my PDC where it was like, we've got this problem or these problems in the world. What can we co-create together? How can we collaborate? What creative ideas can we have? How can we think outside the box? And how can we have fun in that process as well? And so that was what like lit me up, was like, wow, I'm having fun learning. People are we're invited to actually give our ideas and contribute. And right from the word go, I found that with the permaculture movement here in the UK, definitely it wasn't about like you have to work up the ladder before you can like be part of the permaculture movement or contribute. It was like, no, okay, what skills have you got now? What enthusiasms have you got now? Do you want to volunteer in a working group? Do you want to come to this event? Do you want to, how do you want to be and show up and contribute?
I think
and
that's
and
super
that Yeah.
powerful, isn't it? I mean, that's the thing. It's like we all are unique and amazing collection of skills and interests. And if you put a permaculture lens on that, like it is, as you're talking about, it's a worldview. And if you look through that worldview with all of whatever it is that we bring in all of our complexities, and we pull that together, so amazing possibilities and imaginations can come forward. And I just wanted to reflect too on a similar experience I had. So I'd come out of landscape architecture and environmental planning and design. I did that at university, thinking that was going to be a really sort of good ecological thing. And I remember the professor saying, I was trying to weave in permaculture, saying, "Oh no, Morag, design with nature is passé." And I was like, excuse me, did you just say that? And it was all very much about designing for making a mark on the landscape and having a particular, you know, beautiful surrounding around buildings or something. There was no purpose or meaning necessarily in and of itself. And so, and it wasn't a collective thing. It was like, I, as an expert, will come in and design for you. Whereas permaculture flipped all of that. It was like deeply informed by the more than human world, like to step back and to wait and to see what the land is asking of us, what the community is asking, and then to enable the community itself to be the collective designers. And so that the design skill passed on and on and on. It wasn't dependent on this sort of expert coming in and doing it. And so for me, it was it was it was kind of an emancipation, I think, from the sort of the limits that we put on ourselves as so-called experts and enablers. And that to me felt really, really potent. Yeah.
Absolutely. And then that shifts, that ripples, and then you're not just thinking, how do I do that in the garden? Or like it's like, oh, I could design my desk space differently, and I could design how I interact with my partner differently, and what are my exercise routines? And then so that was what I wanted to showcase with people and permaculture, was like how we can use it for, anyone can use permaculture. And while there is this gateway, as I said, from people like wanting to discover permaculture through using it for their garden, actually that great gateway isn't open to everyone, because a lot of people don't have access to land. That isn't where their interests or passions lie. But actually, every single person is responsible for people care. Whether we're just taking responsibility for ourselves, but most of us have responsibilities or care for other people, whether that's our families, our friends, our neighbours, our work colleagues. And so that circle of care, that people care ethic, is relevant to absolutely every person.
Mm.
And so that's what I was trying to do with people. What I have done with people and permaculture is making it relevant, making permaculture relevant to everyone, and then seeing how we can use it in creative ways, and from small to like, what would it look like if we changed our education systems, and what would it look like if we changed our healthcare systems and political systems. All of these things can change when we put our design thinking, our collaborative design thinking. So yeah, people and permaculture was the starting point, and also recognizing how amazing and like transformative permaculture is, and how much people were loving it. And it's like, just like, actually, how can we get this to reach more people, and to show and to make transparent that process from translating the principles and the design from earth care systems, gardens, farms, to any other system. And like, it's always been said, it was said on my PDC, oh yeah, you can use permaculture to design anything. And you're like, great, how do I do that? Where's the examples? And that wasn't there until I started my work with people and permaculture. So that, yeah, People and Permaculture was the first book that actually explicitly did that translation for people of the ethics, the principles, and the design. And is that actually still, even like, what, 14 years later, still one of very few books that does that.
Mm. Yeah,
And
explicitly
and the
and
most,
entirely from
yeah.
that perspective. Yeah. So a couple of questions that sort of emerged out of that was, well, one is, I know that permaculture has been deeply informative of your work and of your writing, but what other things have really shaped the way that you've shown up in your thinking with this? And the other question I was wanting to ask, since maybe it's slightly different, but it's really around this idea of, so from releasing people in permaculture, you've been continuing this work, and I can imagine that it's continued to shape and change you. So maybe we'll come to that question, but I just want to hook that one there so I didn't forget that question. But your things that informed you in as well as permaculture.
Yeah, well, I think the questions are linked actually, because what happened, what I hoped would happen, was that suddenly people in permaculture would come out into the world, and everyone would embrace permaculture as something much beyond the garden, and we'd all live happily ever after. Um, and and actually, even now, even within permaculture and from people looking outside of permaculture, that myth of permaculture equals gardening is quite a tight myth to break open. And so I felt like I needed to sort of reframe what my work was, so that I didn't necessarily have every single person that whenever I said permaculture to, they'd say, "Oh, so what? How's your no dig garden?" And or then be like, "No, doing people in permaculture." "Oh, what's that then? So how's your no dig garden?" You know, it's and so I had this need for like a new framing that also in the framing shared kind of the aim of it as well. The naming suggested what was happening. And I've talked about I talked about changing our education, our healthcare, our political system, and all of those systems are driven by our culture, and they're also cultural drivers as well. So there's a sort of cyclical relationship between culture and education, culture and healthcare, culture and politics, culture and language, culture and all sorts of other things. And I was realizing that culture is like at the very heart of what we need to understand. I had a chapter in here of like, how do we facilitate cultural shifts? And it's like that question there seems absolutely like the pivotal question of our time, because all of the things that we're seeing, the climate change, the social injustice, the political breakdown, all of that all of them are cultural issues. Even things happening in our own bodies, they're cultural issues as well, or have cultural roots. Obviously, there's other factors in there as well, but actually, like there's cultural factors even in a personal issue. Like, I had RSI in my right arm, it's my body, but actually I'm living in a world that is very right arm dominated. So that's what's exasperating it, because the culture is in asking me to use my right arm more than my left arm. So even something in my body has cultural roots. And so I was looking at this framing, and then like saying actually as well, the framing of permaculture, permanent culture, is a bit of a misnomer, because there's never a permanent place that we get to. It's an ongoing process. And so that was where the framing of cultural emergence came from. And it also came into being. This whole toolkit and movement came into being with a collaboration with John Young over in the States, who was mentored by Tom Brown Jr., and a lineage of like Apache, the Apache tribe over there. And his speciality was deep nature connection, and looking at how to create nature connection cultures as well. And so we came into collaboration, and instead of saying, okay, well, I do this bit here and I do this bit here, we sort of went, what happens if we look at the space in between, like we're doing here, the space in between the conversation, but like what will emerge out of this conversation. And that then birthed the Cultural Emergence toolkit, which took some of my work, some of his work, and then there was a whole set of principles and phases that came from the space in between, that were in neither of our work before, but just came out that space in between. And that's what I've been moving forwards. And I know there's Barry and Barbara here on the call, have just finished the Cultural Emergence leadership training with me, and yeah, so there's people here, some familiar faces who've been involved in that movement
Tell us
for
a
a
bit more
while.
about what cultural emergence leadership looks like is. What is that?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
and maybe
Well,
and also wrapped up into that, a little bit about that sort of the process of hosting conversations that will tend to cultural emergence of various kinds, I guess.
yeah, so the leadership training that I do, which is the acronym of CELT, is for people who have done like the modules and learn and I would say learn the toolkit, but it's an ongoing process. I'm still learning it. It's a lifelong journey to of like tending. It's like a garden. You never finish it, but it's like getting the basics. And then there are people who have wanted to take cultural emergence into their community and really show up, and like you do with your permaculture education, it's people that have gone, this has been really useful to me, I want to share this with others. That's part of my contribution. And I think what you and I both have done, Morag, is have said to ourselves, actually, there's a limit to how many people we can teach. We need to teach the next generation of educators. We need to share that. So I've just, this year we've done our 20th year of teach trainings here in person, and you do. I know you've educated people all over the world to become permaculture educators, and that's what I realized, like, yeah, 20 years ago. I was like, oh, actually, if we want to really scale things up and take this forward, and that's a reframe of the fair shares ethic as well, because instead of saying, hey, oh, I can't train up permaculture teachers because that's my competition. It's like, no, let's train them up and let's make a bigger collaboration. And that's I remember you had a talk, I think it was Kat, I think it was your last talk on the festival, and you can maybe remind me who it was, and she was saying there is no pie, like let's forget about this, like, oh, if I train up other teachers, then like they'll take my slice of the pie of students. And it's like, no, there is no pie. There's no shortage of people that want to learn permaculture, and people that want to learn cultural emergence. And like I've like Vary is here, and she's in on your side of the world in Tasmania and Lutrita, and she's able to reach people on the other side of the world. And maybe I'll travel over there one day, but who knows? And
Who know?
then we've
And
got Barbara. We've got Barbara here, who is, she's Dutch, living in Croatia, fluent in many languages, and she's, been able to translate the seed deck, which, the seed deck is the book in card form, which maybe we'll come to in a moment. Oh, great, we can pick cards in a moment.
Yes.
She's been working with other people to translate that into Dutch, and had such a hugely transformative time of putting it into her mother tongue, and came up with a new principle of maybe you put it in the chat there, Barbara, of like what, yeah, doing something in your mother tongue. I'm not sure that maybe you put that, but that's sort of like, and I'm never going to be able to go and teach in Dutch. I mean, okay, if I made it my one life ambition, but it's
I
far
think
more
this is
effective for
this is
me. There you go, speak in your mother tongue,
yeah.
or
I think this is the
Sprechen
key
Moscow.
thing that you can't we it's actually wrong to expect us to be everywhere, or you know it is actually not our place to be teaching everywhere. We can teach where we can with what we have in our cultural context, but then it's like it's that passing it on, and and finding a way to localize it, to contextualize it. You might be particularly interested, for example, in working with mothers, and someone else might be particularly interested in working with young children, and someone might be particularly interested in working with designers or in a particular bioregion or in a particular language. And so there is just no end, as you said, there is no pie and there's no end to the possibilities. So really what it is like I see permaculture education really as a way to host the conversations, to help us to make sense what it might look like in our own places, to hear different examples and to come in and sort of cherry pick and have a structure and a language to be able to create something. And it sort of feels like that's really what it is that we do. And I also think that permaculture in its essence is an educational movement. And I think that's part of that thing of
Yes.
passing it on, so that it just keeps moving. It was never meant to stay still and be in one place. It was always meant to just keep moving and being localized and to activate different things in different places and build, resilience. And so I'm really describing it a lot more as an educational movement than it is even, like a garden, like we're saying, it's not necessarily a garden movement or a self-sufficiency movement or anything like that. It is an educational movement to shift into an ecological worldview, so that we can then keep passing this on and sort of myceliating what ecological living might be like, and offering what we can to accelerate the kind of action that we need in the world. Like that's where I feel like my sort of core action is, and it always stems back to that. How can I be in service to life? And how can I share this in a way that is just like passing it on, passing it on, passing it on? And that's what I feel. Um,
Mm. So
Making it
that
accessible. Yeah.
yeah, and that's lovely. Like an education movement and a leadership movement, because so there's that leadership can show up in lots of different ways. Leading a community group, or being leading your family. Your like is there's many forms of leadership as well, and it's leading through emergence. So like the question of what is cultural emergence leadership, it is like that responding to the group and being in collaboration with the group, with life, and being of service and being in that conversation and have it, and not necessarily being the voice at the front, although you might be, and you're like being comfortable with that, but also it, being the person that opens the space for other voices. And
Mm.
that's really powerful as well. And so it's a very big shift of what does leadership mean, that paradigms of like the person at the front who must know all the knowledge and keeps all the knowledge safe. It's not like that. It's like, how do we like lead while being in a circle
Yeah.
with people? It's very different.
Yeah, it is extremely different, and there's something that feels very nourishing about that, both as a leader in a group, but also as a participant, because you're always both, and you're always learning and always curious, and everything that everyone brings in is always incredibly inspiring, because it's about enriching the relationships and the nourishment that can come from having more entanglements rather than just singular flow. So I feel that's super important about this. One of the things that I wanted to ask you, you've mentioned a few times about toolkits. So I think what permaculture and cultural emergence brings is uh, are these toolkits and frameworks and ways of thinking. Because when you enter into this space, you go, oh, so we're just thinking about this whole ecological worldview. And it's like we're sort of starting to think from, in systems now. It's like, oh, but where do I start? And how do I find my way into that? And so it's these toolkits that really help us to sort of begin where we are familiar. And then as we become familiar in using those toolkits, the toolkits can be then translated into different contexts and different ones. And our projects that we might take on might expand or, be more complex. And so I think, having these toolkits and frameworks is such a valuable thing. And they're never just useful for one. one thing at all. It's always, a transferable skill. So perhaps if you could talk about some of your useful toolkits or tools in your
Yeah.
toolkit that you have.
Yeah, so maybe this is a good time to bring in the design web as well, because that's one of the tools that first first wrote about it in People and Permaculture, and it was very much an emergent process of like writing in this book and wanting to explain the design process and have a poetic way of sharing about the steps, and then this web came into being, this idea of it not being a being a non-linear process, and that you can go anywhere and it's all connected, and there isn't one place that where the design just like pops into being. It's like fed from many places and interconnected and organic and can be used for anything.
Mm.
And so the design web came into being, and it's got like two important people care, and I'd call it like there's 12 anchor points. And this is my new book, Design Adventures, which is kind of goes deeper into the design web and is also takes it from the basics as well. And so it's got like 12 anchor points, and starting with vision, although you can start anywhere, and it's got like appreciation woven in as one of the anchor points, and pause as well. This idea that actually the pause and the rest and the fun and the creativity and the rejuvenation is as important to your system as the action, as the getting things done as well, and that needs to be in balance. So yeah, those were the um, it's then be used in all sorts of ways, and it's really effective tool for thinking about change and then finding pathways to do that and to be in conversation. So like when you step into design, you're in the conversation with the design, with your life, with your your hopes and dreams, and it's very different from land-based design where you plant an apple tree and you get apples. When you step into design for yourself, all sorts of new ideas and possibilities and collaborations and friendships, and new parts of yourself come into being. So lots of emergent things can happen when you step into like people-based design, and then the design web can hold you, because you can then go, oh, I've just come across this new limit in my life, or this like self-limiting belief that I didn't realize I had, but now needs kind of unpicking, and or a new collaboration, which is a new help. So
And really
yes.
like the way that you write your books, Luby, because it's not just a sort of a download of all of your thinking. It's actually incorporating a lot of questions. It's almost like a personal development book or a community development. You can do it by yourself, or you can do it with your family, or you can do it with your community. And so as you take your step through each of your anchor points, you can focus on that. So you could even use it as a study guide for a community book club, for example, and really activate a whole lot of amazing things by working through that, or making your own journey through that in that way. And I wonder whether people have been using it in that way, Luby, because it feels to me like that would make a whole lot of sense.
Yeah, that's a brilliant idea. I love that. And it's when I started writing People and Permaculture, I had a I've been teaching for a while then, and I had this thought of going back to the beginning of our conversation, with just like how interactive and participatory and reflective, and how much the PDC invited my contribution, and I was like, how do I make this alive in a book? How do I make it that sort of two-way conversation, rather than, as you say, yeah, it's not just a download from me. There's a lot of a download from me, a plus or a lot of collective wisdom that's harvested from groups and woven in, and then yeah, that activity, so you can go through it as well, and it's like going through a whole PDC or a whole like cultural emergence course with me. If you choose to do that, obviously it's different, and it will suit some people to do that, and as you say, to do that with people around you as well is then even more powerful. And I know people that have done that, and then that's the space we're making as well. We've Barbara, who's on the call with me, and Delvin Solkinson, who I know you know, and Emma Gorbett. We're the four of us. We create this Cultural Emergence collective where we meet monthly for people that are like engaged in their cultural emergence journey. So we keep momentum through that engagement. So yeah, we'll put links in the chat for you.
Yeah, that's very cool. I think it's a really great idea, and you may find people in your local neighborhood or you may not. And so having people that that it's sort of like a community practice of people around the world that you can come together and have those points, and your journeys are not going to be all at the same pace or in the same place, but when you come together and share, it really helps. It's I guess it's one of those pause moments and reflection moments to sort of come together and to really lean into that. And so I think, I really love the way that I'm not going to read them out. I've sort of copied them down here on my piece of paper, but one of the things that I wanted to ask about is pause and vision, and identifying limits and looking at patterns. And in amongst those, you've got principles. So in the permaculture design principles, you've got the principles that there's the 12 principles. So you've got the
Right.
principles kind of like, all right, here's my sort of 12 points. And like, whoop, I've slotted principles as one. Can you just talk a bit about that intersection there and how that plays out?
Um, Yeah, so well, maybe I was going to ask you actually, just to ping yeah, it back to you. Or if I wonder, because you've got the seed deck there, and I wonder if you would like to think about something you're designing in your life, maybe kind of consciously or unintentionally or informally, and to pick one of the purple cards or the principal cards, and to pick one of those, just tune in and to a question and pick one of those, and let's see what comes.
The wild card.
Ah, you got the wild
All
card.
right, tell me, what does that mean? Do the unexpected. Oh my
Well, I
gosh.
mean, the wild card was just like allowing for sort of the emergence. So we've already like had with Barbara's like card of like speak your mother tongue. That was a like wild card principle. Maybe you want to pick another one as well.
Yeah. Well, just talking on this one, I've bit of a wild card for me at the moment is um my parents have suddenly got very ill,
Mm,
and it's thrown a wild card into my world. And I'm going to have to do unexpected things to be able to tend to them and continue the work that I do.
mm,
And I don't know
mm.
what that is yet. So I'm kind
Yeah.
of in a bit of a wild and wonderful space at the moment and needing to do the pausing and the reflecting. I was having a chat with my son the other day, my 18-year-old son, Hugh, and I was sort of expressing that to him. I'm a bit stuck. I'm not quite sure. I've got this to do and this to do, and I need to go down to Melbourne, which is 2,000 kilometers away. And he was so wise. He said, "Mum, grab your little book and a pen and just go for a walk and go and sit down the river quietly by yourself and just reflect on things, and you'll find the answer." I was like, I'm so proud of you. My 18-year-old's advice to me. And, he's
That's brilliant, isn't it? That's just
yeah,
like you
embodying
know,
this because he's grown up with it. He like hasn't been
right.
taught it, but it's just in there somewhere. So I was so glad to have that reflected back back at me. But yeah, so this wild card, and I don't have any answers yet. So my sitting with this at the moment is trying to feel okay with not knowing all the answers and not being in control of everything, and to actually to be able to admit and to reach out to people and say, I'm going to be doing the best that I possibly can, but if for some reason I drop a ball here or there, please have compassion for me because I'm trying to do the best that I can at this time. And it's the first time that I'm in this
Yeah,
situation, and I'm learning along the way. So yeah, I mean the wild card is think wild cards do pop into your life all the time, and how we are able to cope with that. And I'm actually so this is I was going to tell you a secret, but I realize everyone's here as well. But I'm finding myself, I'm just going to tell all of you then. I find myself like cursing quite a lot and just like at little things that annoy me. And then I'll just stop and I'll go, why am I doing that? And then I realize like I I'm just holding a little bit too much at the moment. And so that's like being conscious of what's going on, and then having that capacity to reflect on that and go, okay, I just need to pause for a bit. I need to go out. I need to go out into the garden. I need to go down to the river. I need to go and talk to the kangaroos out here and just take a bit of a moment out. And so I don't know why that's happening, but like I don't normally do that. But yeah, I am noticing that more. And so maybe that's just a bit of an extra also because I don't know what's going to happen. And I feel incredibly responsible and stressed about this
mm,
situation and completely out of my depth.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, thank you for sharing. And I know I realise we're isn't this called the wild and kind ideas? So of course you picked the wild card.
Yes, there we go. How
Of course,
serendipitous is
makes
that? I did not plan that. You all saw me take a kind of a wild, and I was honestly a wild card. Yes.
uh,
Mm.
the principles always speak, or the cards. That's what I always find. I know I had someone the other day, and they picked one, and they were like, "Oh, your body knows, okay," and they were like, "So that's so perfect," and they were like, okay, maybe they're all perfect. Maybe it was just coincidental. Shuffled them, went and picked it again, and was like, "Your body knows," and it was just like, okay, this is this is the message for me at the moment. So, um,
But I think
yeah, it's
having valuable questions like this, I think, if you didn't pick it again, having both of those, it would still
right.
be really useful to take that time to reflect, and it gives you a portal to sort of shift from where you are to actually give some sort of framework to be able to see things differently. And I think, that's like just to take you off your sort of trajectory and just go, oh, let me just have a look from another angle. And once you do that, a whole lot of other new relationships and ideas start to form, and maybe sort of settle a bit and become more reflective in that space and open to, and maybe be a bit more, another one you've got here is appreciation, and just to sort of take that time to, appreciate where you are at that point in time. And
Mm.
mm,
Yeah, and it's such a big journey, and I think the thing is that like we somewhere in our kind of paradigms, maybe it's not for everyone, but there's a sense of like this is how the world is, or we're on a journey to a place, a fixed place, or either individually or collectively, and this is how the world is, and actually is not, it's always changing. Our constellation of people around us, people, plants, pets, it's always shifting, isn't it? And like the political systems, the climate, all of these things, we is like so I think the Cultural Emergence Toolkit, one of its strengths and possibilities is just supporting us to navigate those changes, to just like so it'd be like rather than just like what's happening, to just get a kind of card going, do the unexpected, okay, wild card, this is what's happening, I've been served this, what's there, and then maybe you want to pick another one and see if what's next for you on that journey. Do you
you want
want
me to pick another one,
to,
and then we
yeah,
can
go
then
for
we
it.
can go to questions, because I can see some
Yes, let's do
questions and
that.
comments
Yeah,
coming. Which color am I picking?
I think another purple one
Oh, the
to,
purple one. Okay, all right. Let me. Yeah. So I'm just going to randomly pick one. Oh, look at that.
hmm.
Love. Allow for the possibility of the seemingly impossible. Give voice to your heart's desire, widen parameters of possibility, and stay engaged with searching for solutions. Now, the first thing that jumps to my mind at this, and I was actually just thinking about this today, because in order to be able to help mum and dad more, I'm probably going to have to spend a lot more time with them. And if I'm doing that, then it's going to give me a lot more time to write, which has been something that's been in my heart's desire for a long time. And so, you know, that's going to help to, maybe that's if I blend those two, and it makes something new possible that wasn't possible before, because as anyone who's here who knows me, I'm sort of say yes to just about everything, and spend my life doing great and wonderful, lovely things. But the thing that I really, really craving, as much as everything else that I love doing with you all, is to find that time to do writing. So
Mm.
yay,
Mm.
JP. So anyway, that's what I got out of that. I don't know if you had any reflections on that particular card.
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of ways you can interpret that on personal level and like on a global level as well, collective level. I think that there is a very hopeful card, hopeful principle that that we we're kind of, a lot of people think at the moment and are acting as if like the dystopian futures that are in every, not every, but in multitude of books and films, is like that's inevitable, that's what's happening and we can't stop it, and why bother, and that mindset, then we'll end up there. But with the mindset of like, well, maybe there's solutions to this. Maybe we can work out the climate crisis. Maybe we can reforest. Maybe we can come up with more justice in our social systems. Maybe we can transform our political systems. All of these things, if we stay with those open as a possibilities, we'll carry on looking. It's
Mm,
like when you're looking for your car keys or something. You carry on looking because you know it's possible. You know that, well, they haven't just disintegrated. They are somewhere in the house. If I keep looking, I will find them somewhere. And so in the same way of like, there are solutions out there. If we keep looking on them, we're more likely to find them. We're more likely to actually also find an abundance of other possibilities and other benefits as well.
beautiful. Thank you, Luby. I'm just scanning through some of the chat now, and thank you to everyone who's been writing beautiful comments. Chris said, my mum lived to 100 and a half, and her advice was go with the flow. Nice.
I love that.
And hello, Ro Morrow, saying that in the first permaculture course you did with Bill and David, they were using the word permanent, and I think that sense of that word has changed since then. I think this is what we need to stay alive with, that it's not to stay fixed, like someone wrote this back then and that's all it is. Things grow and change, and language grows and change, and understanding and philosophy and our cultures change. And so I think this sense that you bring into it, this sort of movement of it, and it's not like saying, oh, we're going to let go of that. It's like, what do we keep moving through with this? What new, how are we landing in this space, rather than trying to go, this is what it is, let me lift up your lid and pour that in, and then you can lift up someone else's lid and pour that in. It's like, what is the continuing of this, and how when you touch it do you enrich it, and how when I touch it I enrich it, and the next person, we all enrich it every time we touch it and share it. And I think that um yeah, so I think when we get
Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah.
when we get stuck on these words and say, well, we can't do that, it's like, yeah, well, let's put it in the context of where it's from, and let's move it on and keep going like that. So thank you, Ro, lovely to see you here. There was some questions came up. Now, I just wanted to also say, if folks would like to come and join us here on the screen, we can bring you in. Just raise your hand like that. Down the bottom of your menu there, you'll see a little raise hand feature. If you can't see it, it might be in the little three buttons more, and that way I can see you. Or you can wave at me, but I'm not seeing many people because I've only got a small number of you up the top. So if you'd like to come in, please do try and do that hand thing. But Lisa's got some questions here. Right. She's saying permaculture has been around for a long time and yet still feels to me like something on the outer, something alternative. Has it made inroads into more mainstream environments? It still has the hippie vibe, she finds. Very interesting question. It depends where you are. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that too, Looby. I've just come from an amazing event down at the university just over the last couple of days where I'm sitting there with lawyers and ecologists and planners, and sitting there as a permaculture designer and educator. So it's very much about how do we collaborate, and looking to the people who have been doing permaculture for all these decades as being invaluable people to have in the room, because all the theories and ideas have been things that people are sort of starting to come around to saying, oh, this is actually what we need. And then going, well, let's look for some case studies. And then they see, oh my gosh, there's these people who've been doing this for all this time. So I felt really validated in that space. That's just my quick reflection on that, Luby. I don't know, what would you add to that?
Well, I guess there's like let's look at that word hippie for a moment, and it is like the sort of, like, oh, if you're just like, hey, save the world, you're hippie, and it's like, well, actually, isn't it about time more of us were thinking, let's save the world, let's save ourselves, let's save the whales, let's save the trees, the bees, all of it needs care and attention. And if we're going to label anyone that wants to give that care and attention as hippies, and therefore the whole permaculture movement is here full of hippies, well, that is the framing, isn't it? But that, I think there is a cultural shift now in thinking that in so many more people, scientists, politicians, some, obviously not all, but you know the average person as well, that will think, actually, hold on, there is a big issue here, we do need to do things differently. And the heat wave that we're currently experiencing, or just finished experience in the UK, but's moving through Europe, is like, it's a wake up call, because everyone has felt it in their bodies. It's like, oh, hold on, this doesn't feel right. I might be enjoying it a bit, but I'm also, for many people, it's like, oh, hold on, this isn't right. This is something that's happening now, not in 10 years, 20 years. It's like, so that's been a bit of a wake up call. And I think, until, it's a shame that permaculture is still a fringe, because we do need it to become the majority.
And I think
And
the
it's
thing that
shifting.
I'm learning too, Luby, you know, is to not speak as though it is fringe. Like, if we're just showing
Yeah.
up, speaking just good common sense, and being in wherever we are, making sense. It's not that. And the other thing is not allowing that word to offend us, and to re-describe what it means in this context, like just what you exactly did. And so I think we can keep it in the fringes, but actually, and I'm glad you're here, Ro, just about to come in, because
Yeah.
talking about the
Oh,
edges is something that I think is really important. Actually, being on the edge and not in the middle is somewhere that gives you a lot of power, and is actually what drives so much of cultural shift. So I really love to hear what you say on that. But just before we go to you, Ro, the second part of Lisa's question.
I've just spotlighted Row, actually.
Oh, okay.
Uh,
I'm just going to. She's not. Here we go. Add pin. There we go.
I'm not sure.
There we are. Hello.
Ah,
I can see you
Hello.
now.
What an interesting discussion this has been. I'm so interested in how we come from a cultural and personal perspective. So when I was talking to a group of Norwegians the other day, they were saying to me, now permaculture is only for the elite in the world, people who can afford the course. I said, do you know how many people are doing permaculture in India today? You're aware of the scope of permaculture in refugee camps, even in East Africa, what's happening in Zimbabwe. And I was thinking how so much of our extrapolation and our ideas come from, obviously, and it has to, authentically, from our experience. But very often it lacks that real knowledge of what is happening because permaculture is actually quite massive in some countries and it might look a bit different from here. But being recently in China, in Shanghai, I was staggered at their permaculture conference. The people who came from all over China and what they were saying and what they were doing, how they're spreading it, because Chinese have a thing, we all cooperate, which is stronger than being individual. So, I'm just interested in it's hippie, yes, but for whom is it hippie? And is that today not a compliment?
Yes.
Because we know how much that hippies led a movement away from materialism. There's some of my thoughts, and I should finish now to give
Oh,
others
thank you,
a chance.
Ro. It's really
Thank you,
lovely to,
Luby.
yeah, thank you, Ro. It's lovely
Thank
to see
you.
you.
It's been, yeah, really lovely to see you, Ro, and have you here. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Okay, I'm just going to
Yeah,
bring in, um,
it's true that it's like the movement has changed so dramatically over the last decades, and it has grown differently in different contexts. As if you would put a plant in China, it will grow differently to the same plant in the UK, same plant in Australia. It will grow differently. So permaculture has done that, and I think cultural emergence will do that, particularly with this translation project. It's already some of the seed decks from the families are in Dutch, Finnish, Scottish, Gaelic, and Norwegian, so and Spanish, so and Italian. So, that it then, because I recognise there was a limit to having things in English. Again, that sort of sense of it being elite, because you need to understand English. It's like, well, let's spread it out in different languages. So that's been really wonderful to support that growth.
um, the Narcissus. I hope I got that right.
Yeah, you did. Thank you so much for the conversation so far. I was thinking from earlier, you were talking about how maybe for an apple tree, you plant the seed and you trust that the tree will grow by itself and bear apples. But when you're working with people at the level of like their mental models and the social soil that we have of like our ideas and the stories we tell ourselves, it often feels like there's a competition with other gardeners for the tending of the same tree. I don't know if that makes sense, but like there are all these other influences and all these other dominant stories that we kind of have to not necessarily compete against, but coexist with. And in your work, have you found some kind of, I don't know what the right word would be, but kind of an approach or a thought pattern that allows you to kind of like relinquish that sense of competition that like I have to keep influencing these people positively and trust that your work will reach as far as it's supposed to and it will land when it's supposed to.
Hmm.
Because a part of it is also being able to continue tending that relationship, and then that's not always possible with how many people you might reach, and you can't remain in conversation and co-creation with everyone.
Great question. Great thoughts. Luby, have you any thoughts on response to that?
I mean, it's true. There is a limit to how many relationships you can tend, and I trust that people will come in and out of relationship, in and out of permaculture or cultural emergence, as and when is right for them, and that there needs to be a village holding this, and not to think it's all the responsibility of Morag or of me or of Roe or whoever to hold space for every person that they teach, or for like entire regions of the world. That's not possible. So it is about that sharing. And I think Ro, you have a principle of relinquish power, don't you?
Yeah.
In Delphin's book, and it's relinquish power to highly effective people, isn't it? So it's not just relinquish power to anyone, but it's just like, if you've got someone, a friend, who's like, hey, they seem really good at admin, like, actually, can I get them to help and be on my team for admin? Or someone else who's great at cooking, or it's like, who can you support? And that's part of the leadership as well, is actually distributing leadership and connections, and empowering other people to hold pieces of the network. Yeah.
Thank you, Looby. All right.
Sorry, is it okay to add one more thought
Oh,
to that?
one more quickly, and then we probably need
Just the
to
thought
wrap
was
up.
that
Sorry.
also part of the work I have been trying to do is to see other organisms as collaborators and participating in that web of support. That some things we also don't have to figure out as human beings, and there's all these other organisms trying to work towards the same direction of planetary well-being as us.
Thank you. I'm so glad that you did add that. Entirely true. It's not just a human action, this work. And I often talk about this having discovered being in a permaculture garden, because I am surrounded by one, but just being, I am the garden gardening, I am not the gardener, and recognizing this role of being entirely held by the garden and informed by the garden, and the lessons from that translating into absolutely everything, and that comes too into this sort of ability to be able to trust and to be part of the flow, like what Chris's mum was saying. Go with the flow. I am going to try and remove the pin. There we go. Sorry, I'm trying to do multiple things at once, because I wanted to come back to you, Looby, and Ro. Thank you for being here. Looby, to say thank you so very much for being here today, and just sharing so warmly and openly and with such rich resources. Where, of all the places, if people were to go to one place to find links to everything that you do, where's the best place for that?
Yeah, it's my website, cultural-emergence.com, and you can get my books there. You can find out about my online courses and the community, and join the newsletter. And I've started a Substack as well. So there's lots of places you can see. But if you go there, and I'd suggest, jumping on our newsletter would be the first point. And then you get like the Cultural Emergence Principles colouring book, PDF as well, so you can like engage with the principles in that way. And just get involved. I've got a free taster course as well. I put the links in, so you can kind of get more of a sense of the cultural emergence and the the premises, the foundational understandings behind the toolkit and some of the tools. So it's a really great way of just starting your journey. So if any of you today have gone, oh, cultural emergence leadership, that sounds amazing, start your journey here with the taster course, and work your way up to that. You're not going to be immediately able to jump into the leadership training without understanding the toolkit to start with, but that's sow the seeds now, and they will grow, and at some point you'll be ready for that. So really excited to be able to share this, and just to feel the synergies between the permaculture movement and the cultural emergence movement, and they're very much coming from the same place with the same intention. So just to weave those communities together feels really special as well. And thank you so much with all you do, Morag. It's just really amazing. The global community that you've created is very awe-inspiring. So thank you so much for having me here.
Thank you for being here today, Looby, and thank you to everyone who's here. You will receive a link to the replay after this, and feel free to share this out. If you know someone who you think would enjoy this conversation, please pass it on, and please also pass on the links to sign up for future conversations as well. The next 4 conversations each Wednesday in July. We'll be speaking with Afshan Amar, who runs a permaculture hospital garden in Malawi. Absolutely amazing project. It's like you've really got to come and see that one too. Then we're going to be talking to Pippa Chapman, and she's going to talk all about food forests. And then John Seed and his colleague Erica Alino will be talking about deep ecology. And our final session for July will be with Buttons Mira, who's just released a book about her work with urban mycology. So that is also going to be a lovely, interesting conversation. So again, thank you so much, Looby, and thank you everyone. And I will look forward to seeing you all again soon, I hope. And maybe I might see you, Looby, in the UK in August. Possibly, hopefully, maybe. That would be great. I'm just
Lovely.
trying to work out whether I can get there with all the craziness in the world. But anyway, well, my fingers are crossed for that at the moment. Yeah. All right. Take care, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. Bye.